You're watching Capital Connection from the Illinois State Capitol.
12 workers with disabilities got their jobs back at Goodwill this week after a massive public outcry when that nonprofit thrift store chain across central Illinois initially decided to let them go and stop paying them. We turn now to Greg O'Connor with SPARC, the Specially Adapted Resource Clubs program that works with people with disabilities. I want to first get your reaction to the rather dramatic episode and the turn of events that we saw in that roughly 48-hour window there. What was your first initial reaction when you saw that this nonprofit, whose mission it is to help people with disabilities get job training and get work, turn on them?
Yeah, I didn't quite understand it. You know, I don't know the details internally, but it didn't make a lot of sense to me.
This opportunity, this story, got a lot of attention, even made national news, and it gives us a bit of an opportunity to shine a broader spotlight on what it's like for a person with disabilities to try to find a job and to get to work. What are some of those hurdles?
You know, there's also advantages. We know the folks we support really well. They happen to live in our group homes. We believe everybody has something to contribute. It's our job to figure out what that is, and then to get them a job in the community, and then to support them while they're out in the community. Some employers are reluctant, but Springfield has really embraced this. I think we have about 50 people now who are working in the community, some with job coaches. Some employers actually prohibit job coaches from coming because they believe it's their responsibility to watch out for each other. And those are our favorite employers, because that's when people make real connections. When they're surrounded by staff, it means that everyone they interact with is paid to be with them. And when they go get a job in the community and they don't have a job coach, their relationships are natural.
Probably everyone in our audience knows someone with an intellectual disability or with a disability of some kind. And so many of these people have brought so much light and positivity to people around them. They're very fun to interact with. And you mentioned the relationships that they can build in the workplace. What are some of the advantages that maybe some employers hadn't previously considered about why it might be a good idea to give them a look at a job in the workplace?
I would guess number one would be loyalty. You know, in a lot of industries, like for example, fast food, the turnover is 100%, 200%, 300%. We have folks that have worked in fast food for 10 and 15 years. It's unheard of. When they get a job and they master it, they don't get bored with it. They consider it an everyday challenge to get through that same exact set of steps at work, and they don't quit. And that's of real value to employers who are constantly faced with turnover, because turnover is so expensive.
So that highlights two things. That there's the economic advantage of turnover, which we can address in a moment, but you mentioned the pride and the loyalty there, which is sort of a workplace culture that you're building. That's a positive step that's hard to find.
Right, right. The folks we support take great pride in their work. It defines them. We have a work center for people for the times people aren't working in the community. Let me back up a little bit. When we say we have 50 people working in the community, they don't work 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. They might work 10 to 3 Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday or whatever. So there are times when they're not at their job in the community. And we have a work center where we make different things, and they come there. And it's not unusual to go to the work center and see somebody with their work uniform and name badge on a day they're not working. That helps. That's their identity. This is my citizenship. I work in the community and I pay taxes. So it builds a strong sense of self. And you know, you mentioned that everybody knows somebody with a developmental disability and they bring joy to your life. They bring a lot of joy to everybody they work with.
It's fascinating. It's really struck me interviewing Nick Braun, the young man in this story that we first talked to, and he said many of the things that you're describing here, how much this, I asked him, what was your dream job? And he goes, I just want to work at Goodwill. This is my dream job. And it really was something where every morning his mom told me that when the bus would come to pick him up, because he couldn't drive to work on his own, at 7 o'clock, he'd be ready to go 15 minutes before it got there. He's waiting, anticipating this day to work. I don't know many people that look forward to work that much.
That's right.
But the economic issue is also something. You mentioned the turnover. Employers that work in those high churn industries, that's a real bottom line cost, trying to go out and hire a new person, train them for that job.
Only to have them leave.
To have them leave again and then do it all over again.
Right.
Not only is it costing you the money of going through all of that and onboarding that employee, but it's also costing you a lot of time and just stress as an employer to do that. So it sounds like you can make an economic argument, which is the reason I'm highlighting that is because it completely is a contrast with what the Goodwill CEO had said, that these people were a financial burden.
Yeah, I don't see it that way. We have 2 or 3 people on staff who do nothing but pound the pavement and look for jobs for people all day, every day. And then we have a crew of people that check in on our folks to make sure the employer is getting what they need, to make sure that the employee is doing their job, and to help them if they need help.
Do you find that there are some employers that maybe have bought into a stigma or they're hesitant to buy into or to entertain the notion of interviewing or hiring a person with disabilities?
In the last 5 or 6 years, I can recall one incident, yes, and the person was terribly misinformed.
And other employers have given you what reaction instead?
Neutral to positive, and once they've hired one of the folks we support, then they're in the positive column. You know, we also have, I'll give you an example, we have a janitorial program. So 4 or 5 guys or ladies will get in a van at the end of the day around 4 o'clock with a staff person, and we have contracts, and they clean buildings. And a lot of them are state agencies. Illinois State Police, the old Franklin Life building, we clean that. Those folks get better and better at what they do, and then they leave those crews and they get jobs in the community. It's a nice pipeline for them to go through, and they make more money as that happens. And you know, when you make money, you have options, and a check gives you dignity.
The dignity is interesting. That's a big part of the national political discussion right now, especially in the presidential primary in the Democratic side. There's a lot of discussion about this. In fact, 2 presidential candidates, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, spotlighted this story and talked about it because it struck them in a certain way. Bernie Sanders called for ending the sub-minimum wage. Put that in context for us. How many workers with disabilities are right now being paid below the minimum wage? You don't have to give me an exact number, but roughly. And is that something that you and other advocates would like to see end?
It's very complicated. When we place somebody in the community, they immediately earn minimum wage or above. When they come to the work center on the days they're not at work or because they're not yet working, they earn sub-minimum wage. Some people earn in excess of the minimum wage because it's based on piecework, and some earn below it.
Which is basically how much work product you can produce.
Right.
It's scaled based on that. Yeah.
Right.
So you're saying there's possibly a benefit to that for some?
For some people. There are some people who, I believe, are not going to be successful in the community due to the severity of their disability. And right now, they can engage in paid work. And when 14C, which is sub-minimum wage, is phased out, and I believe it will be, those people will have a choice of doing arts and crafts or activities or getting a job in the community. If they're unsuccessful in the community, they'll go back to arts and crafts, and they'll lose their ability to earn what money they do earn now.
Greg O'Connor from SPARC, working with people with disabilities to help them find jobs in the community. Thank you for joining us to help us understand this set of issues a little bit better. Okay. We're back in just a moment with our Reporters Roundtable. Stay with us.